Charles Darwin referred to them as disgusting birds that wallow in putridity. Someone else described them as raw-necked and gainly gulls. Regardless, a whole day has been set aside to raise awareness on their plight. You might be wondering what I'm talking about here. Yes, I'm referring to the vultures. The first Saturday of September every year has been set aside to talk about the vultures. And some might ask, why should we set aside a whole day to discuss or talk about or raise awareness on vultures? Now, with me here is someone who will help us understand why the International Vulture Awareness Day happening every first Saturday of September every year is significant. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Kabla uanze kutuambia, sanitize.
Thank you.
Before we go into why this day is significant, why it's important to talk about vultures the whole of today, the International Vulture Awareness Day, tell us about yourself and why you have the authority, the power and the moral ground to speak on behalf of these magnificent creatures.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. My name is Eunice Kamau. I am a wildlife researcher and I particularly work with birds. And I do research and monitoring of birds at Lewa Wildlife Conservancy.
So, what inspired you to focus on birds, to study birds and be a bird specialist?
Actually, I've been brought up in a rural setup, and I grew up seeing wildlife, seeing birds, and those days persecution of birds was very rampant. And due to my passion and because I loved wildlife, because of that, I pursued a course, wildlife management, and today I am so happy because I'm studying for the birds and I'm speaking for them because they are voiceless.
They can't speak with us. Now, let's narrow down to the vultures because today is their day. Before we go into the significance of this day, I understand that there are different types of vultures. How many do we have out there? And can you name them?
Yeah, there are different types of vultures. From a worldwide aspect, we have 23 species of vultures, and in Africa we have 11, and in Kenya we have 7.
7 different types of vultures in Kenya?
Yes.
One?
So one we have palmate vulture.
Palmate.
We have bearded vulture, we have lappet-faced vulture, we have white-backed, white-headed, pelts, and Egyptian.
What is Egyptian vulture doing in Kenya? Okay, so 7 different types of vultures across the country. Now, why is today important for the vultures? Why do we have to raise awareness? Are they important in any way that they warrant a whole day set aside to talk about them?
Yeah, we are raising awareness of the conservation of vultures because in the recent years, vultures have been declining at a very high rate, and seeing the importance that the vultures play. For example, we have 3 major roles that the vultures play. One of the major significance of vultures is because they usually clean our environment, and therefore they prevent disease-causing organisms from spreading. Therefore, they keep our ecosystem healthy. For example, diseases like anthrax, diseases like rabies, these diseases are very contagious, and therefore if the carcass is left unattended, then there's going to be spread of diseases to wildlife and also to other animals and also to human beings. And also now the second role that they play is that they serve a purpose for ecotourism. We know that there are so many people who are birds enthusiasts, and therefore they usually come to our country to see the diverse avian fauna that we have here in Kenya, and So they usually promote tourism. And even some are very key or very much interested in vultures.
Specifically vultures. You talked about two very important points. One, vultures clean the environment, reading the environment of diseases. And we usually talk about prevention being better than cure. And from your description, we can as well summarize it as vultures being public health officers, right?
Yes.
Because they're helping control
Yes.
the diseases.
Yes.
That's fantastic. And then another thing you said is some people come specifically to see the vultures. I mean, there are bird enthusiasts out there. And then from the bird enthusiasts, we have vulture enthusiasts, like those who just want to see the vultures.
Yes.
And they pay to come and see them and photograph them, and that brings income to the country.
Yes.
Wow. Any other importance?
Yeah, we had mentioned three. So the last one is most vultures have cultural values, mostly in the African communities. For example, one they are usually used for, they represent maternity, life. Some people in some different cultures, for example, one culture says that when they see vultures near them, they see life. They see that maybe there is life somewhere.
It's a symbol of life.
Yes.
Interesting. Interesting things about vultures out there, right? So you said that their population is declining so fast. Why is this happening?
It's so sad that these health officers, the vultures in particular, their numbers are really declining at a very high rate. And that means there is a major threat that is posed to human beings and to other animals at large. So one of the major threats that is facing the vultures, the vulture population, is poisoning. Yeah, particularly the unintentional poisoning, where poison is used as a way of mitigating human-wildlife conflict, because you get that the local communities, or maybe those one who farm, they use poisoned meat as baits, so that they keep away the predators like lions, leopards, and cheetahs, and therefore the poisoned meat will attract the vultures automatically. And when the vultures will feed on the poisoned meat, then they eventually die. Yeah.
And I'm sure it kills more than just the vultures, right? Because we have a number of species out there that feed on the carcasses.
Yes, even the animals that they are trying to keep them away, they will also feed on that, and then they will die.
Yeah. So we'll have a whole chain of deaths in the environment,
Yes.
which is quite sad, right?
It is so sad.
So poisoning is one.
Yeah, poisoning is one, and then another one we have commercial development, especially in the energy infrastructure, construction of energy infrastructure, because vultures have a large wingspan, and therefore when they are flying, they get electrocuted by the electric power lines.
Power lines.
Yeah.
Wow. So we are poisoning them, power lines out there, killing them. What else?
Some people usually just kill the vulture. When they see the vultures fly, they just kill them. The other threat that vultures are facing is persecution. People are persecuting these birds for different reasons. For example, we have some cultures that assimilate vultures with their own ritual practices for ritual purposes. So you get that these communities will just trap the vulture and use them for their own purposes. For example, we have one cultural practice in Africa that usually uses the vultures for their own cultural practices, especially the heads and all that.
So they kill the vulture, get the head, and then use that for rituals.
Yes.
Wow. Is there something we can do about all this? Because from what you've told us about how important vultures are, I'm pretty sure that we need to do something to make sure that their numbers don't go down. Is there anything we can do?
Yes, there are a lot of things that we can do so that we can save this breeding population of the vultures. And one, especially on the issue of poisoning, because there can be poison-free alternatives that can be used to curb human-wildlife conflict and predator control measures. And this one can only be achieved when the conservation sector and also the local communities and the stakeholders collaborate together. And then on the issue of electrocution, the public sector and the private sector also, they should promote vulture-friendly energy infrastructure because they are available. Yeah.
For example, we can have power lines running underground, right? Instead of above the ground, haphazardly across the landscape.
Yeah, sure. I think there are also other options. For example, the power lines, even the beacons, some of them maybe can be made shorter, and the grids can be made shorter, because you know the vultures mostly fly high, especially through their migratory routes.
Okay.
And maybe by lowering the beacons, then the grids, that one can help.
And we can also adopt green energy, right? We go green and use solar power and so on. I'm sure those ones cannot put the lives of the vultures at risk, right? You've talked about now adopting this kind of infrastructure, and you also mentioned, is there something we can do about the cultural, these, I can say, dangerous cultural beliefs?
Yeah, the main thing that we can do about the culture is awareness, because these people usually persecute the birds for their own reasons, because they don't know the vital role that these birds are playing in the environment. They don't know that they are part and parcel of conserving them, and they are benefiting. They don't know they are benefiting from the birds, and therefore just persecute them. But when we create awareness to the local communities, maybe through schools or learning institutions, we do public address to the local communities, and they are educated on the importance that these birds play, then I think they'll be able to change their perception, and that one will help a lot in conserving the vultures.
I think this is the most important, talking to people about the vultures, or making people, because I'm very sure most of us don't actually understand. I think myself, after a certain age, I wouldn't be able to talk about how important the vultures are. From what you've said, I think now we can see why it's important to have such a day, International Vulture Awareness Day, because awareness is very, very crucial, right? Now, as a wildlife researcher focusing on birds, I'm sure you've been out there going after birds. You must have seen vultures doing some interesting things, you know. So what are some of the most interesting things you've noticed about the vultures?
Okay, some fun facts about the vultures is that when they usually eat, they get so heavy, because, for example, when they get a big carcass, like maybe a buffalo, they're devouring a buffalo, and then they are so full. I've seen out there that maybe when you're just passing when they are taking their meal, then it's so hard for them to fly. They just go a short distance and then they go back.
They come back down.
Yeah, they come back down.
They fall.
And fall. And maybe also for another interesting fact is that when they are threatened and they are eaten to their fullest, sometimes they also vomit to make themselves lighter, so that they can be able to escape any danger.
So when, okay, let me get this right. When they see a threat and they are full, they induce the vomiting. So they vomit to be lighter.
Yes.
And
they'll escape.
That's really nice. So last one, there are people out there who really want to do what you do. I'm very sure a number of people are interested in being what we call the specialists in matters to do with birds.
Ornithologists.
Ornithologists. So someone would really want to be an ornithologist. what advice would you give them?
Maybe for those who are in high school, we have subjects like biology, because this one will help you to know the living things that they are surrounding us and some interesting facts. So I can advise someone who is in high school to focus more in biology, what?
The sciences, right?
Yeah, the sciences. And maybe someone who also aspires to do any course in related to ornithology. You can do wildlife management, you can do natural resource, and even those in universities and any learning institution, they can also get involved in protecting the birds by joining some of the groups. Like we have the Kenya Badmap, which you can join freely, and then you can be keying in the vultures you see and even other birds that you see out there. Also, we have other groups like Vultures over Kenya, when you can maybe share your photos that you have to that. If you see also something interesting, you can also share. They are free groups and one can be able to join.
The membership groups, right, across the country. So one can join, be a member, and then learn alongside other enthusiasts and experts.
Yeah, actually Kenya Badmap is a citizen science project, so you don't need any membership to join. If you just have that passion in birds, in vultures, then you can freely join and you can be keying in all the birds that you see. Yeah.
Okay. So that also helps you with identifying the birds and learning more about them in details.
Yes.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard how important the vultures are. You've heard about the role they play in our ecosystem, being public health officers, how they attract tourists out there to come to our country. And despite all that, there are still lots of challenges they are facing out there, leading to decline in their population. So I highly encourage you to play your part, raise awareness, talk to your family, your friends, everyone, anyone you know out there. And in case you come across anything, for example, poisoning or any kind of threat that is likely to lead to further decline in their population, you can report to the wildlife officers near you or the conservation bodies near you. Kenya Wildlife Service is a body that has the mandate to govern over the wildlife we have out there. So any Kenya Wildlife Service office near you, anyone you know who is an enthusiast or someone with a heart for conservation, talk to them, they will connect you to the right bodies. So as we finalize, we want to wish you a happy International Vulture Awareness Day. Thank you very much. No. These are dangerous times. Sanitize, sanitize. And thank you very much, Eunice, for enlightening us on the plight of vultures. And we hope that we will take care of them and ensure that the number rises again, right?
Yes.
Asante sana for your time as well. Yes.
Thank you.
And God bless us, right? God bless us. God bless Kenyans. I'm still fascinated by the idea to reuse this bottle here. This is very, very creative. And we highly encourage this because this is one way to manage waste in the environment. So as we continue to sanitize, may God bless you. May God bless Kenya.